Hey everybody, Derek Brown with BEATBoX SAX here with another Tuesday tutorial. Today's is going to be a little bit shorter. This is a technique that I call slap crack. The reason I call this is because I'm actually using the slap tonguing technique that I talked about a few weeks ago to get a crack sound. So instead of getting a pitched tone that usually the slap tongue is done, I'm doing this to get kind of an alternative backbeat sound. So one of my first tutorials talked about the saxophone pops, or the pitchless pop, and this was of course just making this pa 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 sound, having this pressure at the front of the mouth and releasing it suddenly, kind of with air just from up in the throat, getting this sound. And that's of course the technique that I use a ton. Almost anytime I'm using a backbeat sound, I'm using that pop. This is an alternative that I really like the sound of it. It's kind of more crisp and clear and maybe even higher. So it might even sound more like a rim shot than just a normal snare hit. However, the reason I don't use this as much as those pops is because it's pretty tiring on the mouth, kind of like slap tonguing can be. Especially if I'm slap tonguing my bass notes, it makes it easier to alternate between the two if I'm just using the pops. That being said, this is still a cool technique that you can use once in a while, just like a drummer using the occasional rim shot as opposed to just always hitting the snare. So what I do on this, like I mentioned, I'm doing the slap tongue, so I'm actually getting a suction on the reed, pulling it down, letting that slap back when I'm shooting a puff of air. The difference here is that I'm releasing my embouchure. Particularly, you'll notice the chin dropping to get that pitch-less sound. Now, one disclaimer, of course, is that the slap tongue is a really difficult technique that takes a long time to learn. So go back to my video on slap tonguing first before you try this. Even though, that being said, this is sometimes saxophonists will have this mastered even before they have the slap tonguing tone mastered, so you might even try these in alteration. So you'll also notice if you finger normal notes, you do kind of hear a little bit of that sound still. Not as strong as a normal slap tone because you're releasing the embouchure, and so you don't get that secure tone. So I find to get that even more crisp tone, I finger basically the highest normal note on the sax. So I finger a high F, and I usually use the front F. Here's what it sounds like going kind of through the range of the horn if I do this with the low notes. Still kind of pitchless, you can kind of hear a tone in there. But if I want that high pitch, I go up. Here we go. And there it is, doing that front F. The front F. And I've heard sax players use that as a backbeat, but once again, I find this, it gets a little more tiring. You can't alternate quite as quickly as. It's a little bit tougher. Also, if you practice these a lot, your tongue will actually start to bleed, which is kind of gross, but it happens to me all the time. One other cool thing you can do with this is, as kind of a prep to the tone, you can kind of give the sound of air going to the sound of this kind of lift-off sound. If you saw my original BEATBoX SAX video that I call Catch 'em Up, I do this. It's one of the first techniques I use where I'm going kind of like the air puffs. I'm letting air seep out of the side as I'm leading up to the final slap crack. So hopefully that's something else you can use, particularly if you have the slap tonguing thing down. Of course, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know how it's going. So yeah, Happy New Year and happy practicing. Take care.